1. Let me tell you about this absolutely fascinating 1985 Ford F-150 I just spotted on Craigslist. This isn't your average 85 pickup. We're looking at a custom long bed that's rocking a pretty unique color scheme, mixing John Deere green and yellow, which honestly gives it some serious character and farm-fresh vibes. At $2,500, let's talk about what we're getting here. First off, this truck is powered by a V8 engine. Those good old 8 cylinders that Ford was famous for in the 80s, paired with an automatic transmission sending power to the rear wheels. What really catches my attention is that odometer reading, just 47,000 miles. That's incredibly low for a nearly 40-year-old workhorse, folks. The seller's reporting it's in good condition, and with that clean title, it suggests this F-150 has been well cared for. The custom work seems to be well documented in the photos, and while these 80s F-150s are generally known for their reliability, this one appears to be a particularly clean example. Is $12,500 a lot for an 85 F-150? Well, in today's crazy classic truck market, with these low miles and custom work, it's actually in the ballpark for a well-maintained example. Just remember, you're not just buying transportation here, you're getting a piece of American truck history with a unique custom twist. 2. Let me tell you about this absolute gem I just found on Craigslist. A 1959 Chevrolet Apache 3100 Fleetside short bed. Now, at $27,500, let's dive into what makes this beauty special. First off, this isn't just any Apache, it's a rare Fleetside short bed model, which is honestly pretty hard to come by these days. Under the hood, you're getting that classic 283 V8 motor with reportedly low mileage, just 15,000 miles showing on the odometer. The seller's upgraded to a 200R automatic transmission with a low-car shifter, which is a smart modern touch that'll make this classic much more enjoyable for regular driving. What really catches my eye is the attention to detail in the restoration. They've taken this truck down to bare metal before refinishing it in silver, and they've gone the extra mile with new glass, rubber seals, tires, and rims. The interior has also been completely redone, and according to the seller, it's a solid driver with no issues. For those who might not know, the '59 Apache Fleetside was a pivotal model for Chevy. It represented a more modern design approach with its smooth-sided bed, moving away from the traditional step-side look. This particular example, with its clean title and excellent condition, represents a pretty solid investment in today's classic truck market. Is $27,500 a fair ask? Given the rarity of the Fleetside short bed, the quality of restoration, and the current classic truck market, I'd say it's in the ballpark. Plus, you're getting a turnkey classic that's ready to cruise or show. 3. Let me tell you about this beast of a 1976 Chevy K5 Blazer I just spotted on Craigslist. At $22,000, we're looking at a serious piece of classic 4x4 machinery here. This isn't your average K5. It's got some serious attitude with a 6-inch lift kit and rolls on massive 37-inch tires wrapped around 20-inch rims. That's a proper stance right there. Power comes from a 350 engine. But what really makes this Blazer special is that rare manual 4-speed transmission with a granny gear. That's a combo that'll make any true enthusiast's heart skip a beat. With 104,000 miles on the clock, it's got some stories to tell. But don't let that worry you. The seller's been pretty thorough with updates. New exhaust, fresh gas tank and lines, new brake lines, and a newer carburetor. They've even thrown on some chrome headers, though one's been replaced. The body restoration was done a few years back by the previous owner, and from what the seller says, it's a solid truck overall. Plus, you get that classic removable rear top section, perfect for those summer cruises. Look, $22,000 might seem steep to some, but in today's market for classic K5s, especially one with this much work done and that rare manual transmission, it's actually in the ballpark. These first-gen Blazers are getting harder to find, especially ones that haven't been completely beaten up on the trails. The seller mentions they're selling because of space issues, narrow driveway, which is honestly refreshing. It's not because of mechanical problems. They're even open to trades for pre-1972 muscle cars, which tells me they know their classic vehicles. 4. Let me tell you about this interesting 1985 Ford F-150 I found on Craigslist for $5,000. This isn't your typical 85 F-150. We're looking at a pretty unique build here with a full Crown Victoria frame swap. That's right, this flare-side pickup is running on a 2003 Police Interceptor chassis, which honestly is a pretty clever upgrade that gives this classic truck modern handling characteristics. The truck's showing 112,000 miles and is rocking some modern 2018 Mustang wheels, which is a nice touch. The seller's gone with a bedliner paint job in charcoal metallic, which is practical and gives it a clean, contemporary look. They've also added air ride suspension in the rear, which means you can adjust the stance to your liking. Now, let's be honest here. It's not a completely finished project. The bedwood needs to be finished, so there's still some work to be done. But at $5,000, you're getting a lot of unique engineering for your money. The seller mentions it rides great, which makes sense given the Crown Vic underpinnings, and they're throwing in many extra parts with the deal. For anyone looking for a unique truck that stands out from the crowd, this Crown Vic swapped F-150 could be a really interesting option. The clean title and good condition report suggest it's a solid foundation, and these frame swaps, when done right, can make for some really enjoyable drivers. 5. Let me tell you about this sweet 1976 Chevy El Camino I just spotted on Craigslist for $14,000. This is one of those business in the front, party in the back classics that's apparently been kept in excellent condition, and I've got to say, the seller's enthusiasm really shows in their description. Under the hood, you're getting the 305 5.0L V8 paired with an automatic transmission, a reliable combo that was pretty popular in these car trucks. With 99,220 miles on the clock, it's been driven enough to keep everything working but not worn out. The seller's confident about its reliability for long-distance trips, which is always good to hear. The blue exterior is reportedly in excellent condition with no rust, a big deal for these 70s Chevys. And the leather interior is also well preserved. Everything's said to be working, from the radio to the blinkers and horn, which isn't always the case with classics from this era. Now, while the seller's definitely enthusiastic, I mean, who doesn't love that "grow me a mullet" line? They seem to be backing it up with substance. They're selling by appointment only, which usually suggests a more serious seller who takes care of their vehicles. At $14,000, it's priced in the middle range for El Caminos of this era. Not a bargain basement deal, but not top dollar either. Given the reported condition and the current classic car market, it could be a solid buy for someone looking for a well-maintained example of these unique vehicles. 6. Let me tell you about this interesting 1965 Chevy C20 project truck I found on Craigslist for $8,500. Now, I've got to be straight with you. This is definitely a project, not a daily driver, but there's a lot of potential here. This C20 custom cab has quite a story. It's been with the same owner since 1965, until the current seller got it, and it's been off the road since 1987. The big news under the hood is a 402 big block Chevy engine swap from the early 80s, originally installed with all 1969 dated components, paired with a 3-speed column shift manual transmission. Let's be honest about what you're getting here. The seller's refreshingly upfront about the truck's condition. There are some immediate issues that need addressing. Leaking freeze plugs, belts and hoses need replacement, water pump needs replacing, and it needs new tires. The throwout bearing either needs replacement or you might want to consider switching to an automatic transmission. The body is described as very straight, though there's some rust on the fenders, and the red paint is heavily oxidized. The bedwood is rotted, currently has stained plywood, and the original seat is torn. However, the floor is reportedly solid, and the doors are in good working order, though the driver's side window is stuck. What makes this C20 special is its documentation. We're talking original California pink slip, build sheets, protectoplate, owner's manual, and service records from the 60s, 80s. That's a goldmine for authenticity. At $8,500, you're buying a piece of history that needs some love. The 402 BBC is a strong engine when sorted, and these C20s are getting harder to find, especially with such complete documentation. Just remember, you're not buying a turnkey truck, you're buying a project with great bones. 7. Let me tell you about this 1970 Chevy C20 project I found on Craigslist for $7,800. Now, I've got to be honest with you, this is definitely a project truck that needs some love, and the seller's pretty upfront about running out of steam after an accident. This C20 has lived quite a life with over 250,000 miles, odometers rolled over, and it's currently on its third engine, the second GM Targetmaster after the original. It's got some performance upgrades with headers and dual exhaust, which could make it sound pretty sweet when it's all sorted out. The good news is there's been some recent work done. New brakes all around, including drums. Fresh wheel bearings and steering components have been replaced. There's also a new fuel tank installed, and the seat's been put back in place. The truck's rolling on good tires and even comes with a spare, plus a rear step bumper. However, let's be real here. There's still work to be done. The seller mentions they're nearly there on the signal lights, which suggests the electrical system needs some attention. The fair condition rating and the seller's admission about running out of steam tells us this isn't a turnkey vehicle. At $7,800, you're buying a project that's had some important mechanical work done but still needs finishing. These C20s are solid platforms for restoration, and with a fresh Oregon title and registration, at least the paperwork's clean. Word 8. Let me tell you about this seriously cool 1979 Ford F-150 flatbed I just found on Craigslist for $13,000. This isn't your average '79 F-150. We're looking at a thoughtfully modified workhorse with some really interesting upgrades. The heart of this beast is what makes it special, a custom-built Ford 300 inline-six built by Gibson Performance in 2021, featuring a dual carburetor setup from Clifford Performance, long tube headers, dual exhaust, and a hybrid cam kit. For those who know their Ford engines, the 300 i6 is legendary for its reliability, and this one's been built to perform. With just 54,148 miles showing, this 4x4 comes with a 4-speed manual transmission and a manual locking front differential, plus that bulletproof Ford 9 rear axle. They've done the practical stuff too. New brakes all around in 2022, and it's got power steering to make life easier. The seller's been honest about a few things. There are some cosmetic issues that could use attention, and the speedometer isn't working. But everything else, heater, power steering, 4x4, locking hubs, windows, headlights, and other gauges, is functioning properly. It's been used as a summer daily driver and garage kept in winter, which explains its good condition. At $13,000, you're getting a well-maintained truck with some serious performance upgrades and documented work. The seller's only parting with it due to job circumstances, not because of any issues with the truck itself, which is always good to hear. 9. Let me tell you about this 1971 Chevy C10 I found on Craigslist for $14,900. Now, I've got to be straight with you. This is a truck that's got some issues, but also some really solid points worth talking about. Under the hood, you're getting the classic 350 V8 paired with a TH350 automatic transmission, and it's got a desirable 12-bolt Posey traction rear end. The seller's upfront about it running and driving excellently, with working power steering and brakes. All the lights and gauges are functioning, which is always a plus for a 50-year-old truck, and it's got new seats and a console inside. However, and this is important, there are some rust issues that need addressing. The seller's honest about rust in the floorboards and bubble rust showing up at the bottom of the doors and rockers. These are common trouble spots for these C10s, but they're also serious issues that'll need attention if you want to keep this truck long-term. One big positive is that this is an original short bed, not a converted long bed, which adds to its value. With 86,000 miles showing, the mechanical bits seem to be in good shape. At $14,900, you're paying for a running and driving classic C10 that needs some body work. The seller's clear that they plan to keep working on it and might raise the price or take it off the market, so that's something to consider if you're interested. 10. Let me tell you about this sweet 1968 Chevy El Camino I just spotted on Craigslist for $25,000. This isn't your average car-truck hybrid. We're looking at a nicely modified West Coast example, which typically means better preservation from rust compared to vehicles from other regions. Under the hood, You'll find a 350 V8 that's been upgraded with some serious performance goodies: a Holley carburetor, Edelbrock intake and valve covers, and an MSD ignition system. The cooling system's been modernized with an aluminum radiator and dual electric fans, smart upgrades that help keep this classic running cool and reliable. The blue exterior is complemented by a black interior, and they've added some nice modern touches like a CD player and aftermarket gauges. It's running a 3-speed automatic transmission with a B&M shifter, and it's got power steering and air conditioning, features that make this classic much more enjoyable as a driver. What's particularly appealing about this El Camino is that it seems to be a well-thought-out build. The modifications are all quality parts from reputable manufacturers, and the seller states it runs, drives, and stops well. The polished accessory pulleys add a nice touch under the hood, too. At $25,000, you're paying for a classic that's been upgraded with usability in mind. These 68 El Caminos are becoming increasingly desirable, and this one appears to be a solid example with practical modifications that enhance both performance and drivability. 11. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1978 GMC Sierra Grande I found on Craigslist for $8,000. Now, this isn't your typical Sierra. We're looking at something pretty unique here, with its 5.7L Oldsmobile diesel engine paired with a TH400 transmission. For those who might not know, these Oldsmobile diesels are quite rare to find these days, especially in this condition. With just 40,000 miles showing, this Sierra Grande has clearly been well maintained, and the seller's done some serious work to keep it running right. They've updated all the critical diesel-specific components: new glow plugs and relay, fuel pump, Wix fuel filter and water separator, and they've even installed ARP head studs, which is a smart upgrade for these engines. The maintenance list is impressive: new front brake pads and lines, fresh radiator, rebuilt starter, and they've even put in 2 heavy-duty Costco batteries. This shows they've been serious about maintaining this truck properly. At $8,000, you're getting a piece of automotive history. These Oldsmobile diesel engines were GM's first attempt at bringing diesel power to light-duty trucks. And while they had their issues when new, a well-maintained example like this is a unique collector's piece. The seller describes it as all original and in pristine condition, starting right up and running well. These Sierra Grandes were pretty well-equipped trucks for their time, and this one appears to be a solid example. 12. We're checking out this absolutely fascinating 1960 Chevy C10 that I spotted on Craigslist for $9,500, and let me tell you, this is one special find. This isn't your average C10. We're looking at a big window model with a factory short bed frame that's been given some serious custom love. The seller's being straight up about the work that's gone into this truck, and you can tell it's been a labor of love. They've installed a custom tub short bed, upgraded the steering with a custom column and a sweet banjo steering wheel, and kept the factory seat frame for that authentic touch. What's really catching my eye here is the body condition. They're claiming it's professionally restored with clean floors and doors, and it's set up ready for a small block Chevy engine. The original vent windows and side glass are present, which is always a huge plus for these classics. Now here's the deal. This is essentially a project that's 80% there. It comes with a fuel cell and wiring kit included, and the seller mentions it rolls and steers great. They've done what they're calling all the hard work, leaving the fun part, picking your paint color and final touches, up to the next owner. For $9,500, considering the thousands allegedly spent on restoration and the current market for C10s, this could be a solid deal for someone looking to finish a well-started project. The clean title and odometer reading of 99,999 suggests this truck has lived a full life, but with all the restoration work, that's less of a concern. Just remember, you'll still need to budget for paint and final assembly, but you're getting a reportedly solid foundation with most of the challenging structural work already handled. If you're in the market for a C10 project that's nearly ready for its final transformation, this one's worth a look. 13. We're looking at a really interesting piece of American truck history, a 1969 Ford F-250 Camper Special that's currently listed for $19,550 on Craigslist. Let me tell you why this one's special. This is a pretty unique find. It's a Camper Special Trim F250, which was Ford's beefed-up version specifically designed to handle camper loads. What makes this one particularly interesting is its powertrain combination. It's running a turbocharged 4.9L, 300 cubic inch, inline-six engine paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. That's not a common setup at all. The truck shows 63,928 miles on the odometer, and it's wearing a green-on-green color scheme, which is a classic period-correct combination for these workhorses. The clean title suggests it's had a straightforward ownership history. What's really cool about these camper specials is that they came with heavy-duty suspension components, extra cooling capacity, and usually some additional gauges to monitor the engine while hauling. The inline-six engine, even in its standard form, was known for being virtually indestructible, and with the turbo edition, it should have some decent power on tap. At $19,550, we're looking at collector-level pricing, which makes sense given the unique specifications and the current market for vintage trucks. These F250s were built to work hard, and finding one in preserved condition, especially a camper special, isn't something you see every day. For anyone interested in classic Ford trucks, particularly rare configurations like this turbo setup, this could be a really interesting piece to add to their collection. Just remember, with any classic vehicle of this age, you'll want to do a thorough in-person inspection to verify its condition and authenticity. 14. We're checking out a 1977 Ford F-150 Ranger that's popped up on Craigslist for $9,700. And I've got to be straight with you, we're working with some limited information here, but let's talk about what we know. This is a Ranger trim F-150, which was a pretty nice package for its time, sitting between the base model and the top-tier Ranger XLT. The odometer shows 98,617 miles, which honestly isn't bad at all for a truck of this vintage. These old Fords were built to last. Now, I've got to be upfront. The seller's listing is pretty sparse on details. We know it's got an automatic transmission and runs on gas, but they haven't specified the engine type or condition. For reference, these trucks typically came with either a 300ci inline-six or one of several V8 options, 302, 351, or 400 cubic inches. The clean title is definitely a plus, but with a 46-year-old truck, you'll definitely want to do a thorough in-person inspection. These 6th-generation F-Series trucks are getting harder to find in good condition, and they've been climbing in value over the past few years. At $9,700, you're in the ballpark for these trucks in today's market, depending on condition. However, given the limited information in the listing, I'd strongly recommend seeing it in person, checking for the usual rust spots, cab corners, bed floors, rocker panels, and getting a good look at the mechanical condition before making any decisions. These 77 F-150s are solid trucks with a great following, and they're relatively simple to work on, which is always a bonus for a classic vehicle. Just make sure to do your due diligence, since there are quite a few blanks to fill in with this particular listing. 15. I'm looking at a pretty interesting but rough 1967 Ford F-250 that's listed for $5,500, and I've got to be completely honest with you about this one. This is a pretty unique piece. It's an old California Department of Forestry truck with a factory 8-foot dump bed and side step, powered by the 300 cubic inch inline-six, though the seller calls it a 306, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. These government-spec trucks are pretty rare finds these days. Now let's be real about the condition. The seller's straight up calling it fair, and there are some significant issues to address. The truck was running in 2023 until it fell victim to vandalism. Specifically, the clutch linkage was damaged and the dash gauges were stolen. The odometer's broken at 100,000 miles, and it's currently registered as non-operational in Arizona. It's wearing its original green paint, which tells us it hasn't been restored or messed with too much, but after 56 years, you can imagine it's seen better days. The fact that it was running recently is promising, but you're looking at some definite work to get it back on the road. At $5,500, you're buying a project that needs attention but these old Ford work trucks are generally pretty simple to work on. The 300 inline six is known for being nearly indestructible, and the manual transmission is typically reliable. The dump bed feature, if still functional, could make this a useful work truck once restored. For someone looking for a unique project with some interesting history, this could be worth considering. Just go into it knowing you'll need to fix the vandalism damage and probably address other age-related issues. These old government-spec trucks don't come up for sale often, but make sure you're ready for the work it'll need. 16. We're looking at a 1965 Ford F100 that's listed for $6,500, and I'm going to give you the straight scoop on this classic workhorse. This is a pretty honest old truck with a classic inline-six engine paired to a 4-speed manual transmission with a granny gear, a setup known for its reliability and torque. Now, let's be real about the mileage. It's showing 400,000 miles, which is a lot of life lived, but these old Ford 6s are known to keep ticking if maintained well. The current owners being pretty upfront about the truck's condition. On the positive side, they say it starts right up, runs smoothly, and doesn't leak, which is pretty impressive for a 58-year-old vehicle. All the electrical bits are working, including the heat, wipers, and cab light, and it even has a modern touch with a CD player. However, there are some issues we need to address. The front brake pads are grinding and need immediate replacement. That's a safety issue you'll want to tackle right away. The seller also mentions some rust and offers to send pictures, which is something you'll definitely want to check out carefully on these old Fords. At $6,500, considering the current market for classic F100s, this could be a decent deal if the rust isn't too severe. The fact that it's a running, driving example with working features is definitely a plus, even with the high mileage. This could be a great truck for someone looking for a classic daily driver or weekend cruiser. But go into it knowing you'll need to address those brakes immediately and probably deal with some rust repair. The seller seems honest about its condition, and these 65 F100s do have a strong following in the classic truck community. Just make sure to get a good look at those rust spots before making a decision. 17. We're looking at something really special and unique, a 1976 Chevrolet LOV pickup that's listed for $17,900. And this isn't your ordinary LOV truck by any means. Let me be straight with you. This is a seriously modified example that's caught my attention. Originally, these LUV trucks came with a small 4-cylinder engine, but this one's been completely transformed with a V8 swap, which is a massive departure from stock. Paired with an automatic transmission, this little truck must be quite the sleeper. The odometer shows just 3,169 miles, which likely indicates either a reset after restoration or represents miles since the build was completed. The seller, Family Motor Company, has a reputation for dealing in quality vehicles, and they're listing this one in excellent condition with a clean title. The blue paint looks sharp on these compact truck bodies, and it's worth noting that these LUV trucks, which were actually built by Isuzu for Chevrolet, are becoming increasingly rare, especially in well-preserved condition. Now, $17,900 is serious money for a LUV truck, but we're not talking about a standard example here. This is essentially a custom build with a V8 heart transplant, which represents significant investment in both parts and labor. The price reflects its unique nature and apparent excellent condition. For collectors or enthusiasts looking for something truly different, this V8-powered LUV could be a fascinating piece. It combines the classic compact truck styling of the 70s with serious hot rod potential. Just remember, with any heavily modified vehicle, you'll want to thoroughly inspect the quality of the engine swap and associated modifications. This is definitely one of those builds that would turn heads at car shows and probably surprise quite a few people at stoplights. It's a unique piece of automotive history that's been given a serious performance upgrade. 18. We're checking out a pretty sweet 1978 Dodge Power Wagon that's listed for $18,500. And let me tell you why this one's catching my eye. This is a short bed 4x4 Power Wagon, which is already a desirable configuration. But what makes this one interesting is the combination of original and upgraded components. Under the hood, it's got the original 318 V8, 5.2L, that's been overhauled, paired with an automatic transmission. The The seller mentions it still has its factory AC, which is a nice luxury feature for a truck of this era. Now let's talk about the upgrades. It's sporting a new rough country 4-inch lift suspension setup, new wheels and tires, and a fresh fuel system. What's really interesting is that despite these modern upgrades, it's still wearing its original brown paint and body, which gives it that perfect blend of vintage charm and modern capability. The odometer shows 85,000 miles, but is noted as broken, so we can't be certain about the true mileage. However, with the overhauled engine and new components, the mileage becomes less of a concern. At $18,500, we're looking at the higher end of the market for these trucks, but considering the mechanical overhaul, new suspension, and the fact that it's a desirable Power Wagon model with original paint, the price isn't unreasonable in today's classic truck market. This could be perfect for someone who wants a classic 4x4 that's been mechanically sorted but still maintains its original character. The combination of the rebuilt 318, modern suspension, and original aesthetics makes for a truck that you could both show off and actually use. Just remember to verify all the recent work and check the usual rust-prone areas, even though it's listed in excellent condition. 19. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1967 Chevy C20 Custom Camper Special that's listed for $15,500 down in Southern Oregon, and I've got to tell you why this one's worth talking about. This is a Custom Camper Special model, which means it came from the factory with heavy-duty components designed specifically for camper duty, something that makes it a bit more special than your standard C20. Under the hood, it's packing a 327 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, which is a solid powertrain combination known for reliability and decent power. The seller's keeping it pretty straightforward. They say it runs and drives great, which is always good to hear with a 56-year-old truck. The odometer shows 70,000 miles, though as with any classic vehicle, you'll want to verify if those are original miles. The truck's wearing black paint and is listed in good condition with a clean title. The Camper Special trim is particularly interesting for collectors because these were purpose-built workhorses with specific upgrades to handle the extra weight of camper shells. At $15,500, we're looking at collector-level pricing, which isn't unusual for these C20s, especially in Camper Special trim. These trucks have been steadily appreciating over the past few years, and clean examples are getting harder to find. For someone looking for a classic heavy-duty pickup with some extra historical significance, this could be a solid choice. The 327 automatic combo is known for being reliable and relatively easy to maintain. Just make sure to do a thorough inspection of the usual trouble spots, cab corners, bed floors, and frame rails, even though it's listed in good condition. This is one of those trucks that represents a specific moment in American automotive history, when manufacturers were really starting to cater to the growing RV and camping movement of the 1960s. 20. Let me tell you about this absolutely fascinating 1982 Dodge Ram D150 that's caught my eye on Craigslist. This isn't just any old pickup. We're looking at a Prospector Edition short bed that's actually pretty special. At $13,950, let's break down what makes this truck interesting. First off, this is an Arizona truck, which is huge because it means it's rust-free, and we all know how rare that is for an 82. It's rocking that legendary Slant 6 engine, which, let me tell you, is basically the cockroach of engines. These things just don't die. Paired with an automatic transmission, it's got all the comfort features you'd want. Power steering, power brakes, disc brakes, and working AC. With just 72,000 miles on the clock, this D150 is barely broken in for a vehicle of this age. The seller's being straight up about the condition: clean body, good paint, and a well-maintained interior. They're even throwing in the original wheels and hubcaps, which is a nice touch for authenticity. Look, I've seen a lot of these trucks, and finding one this clean from the early 80s is getting harder every year. The price might seem a bit steep to some, but for a rust-free, low-mileage example in this condition, especially a Prospector Edition, it's in the ballpark of what these well-preserved classics are going for these days. Remember, they're not making any more of these. And this one looks like it's been treated right. Just my 2 cents, but this could be a solid investment for the right enthusiast.